Hello and thank you for joining. Today's tutorial is the fifth Python tutorial, and today's topic is if-else statements. So the first thing you're going to notice is everything we've done in the previous tutorials we've done in the IDE. In the IDE, when you type a command or you type code, you hit enter, you get immediate results. It automatically executes. However, now we want to type in multiple lines in the program in order to check these if-else statements and then run them all at one time. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a file. So in the IDE, you just say File, New File. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and create a really basic program. Let me move this over here. I'm going to go ahead and create a basic program here. I'm going to say A is equal to 5. And I'm going to create a value of B, a variable of B, and let's set it to 7. Okay. Then I'm going to say if A is equal to B, which is two equal signs to B, and then you do colon, you hit return, you'll notice it automatically indents. If you're doing if statements, you have to have a colon after the statement that you're checking. Okay, then in this case, I'm just going to say print. I'm going to say A is equal to B. Like a type equal to B. And then I close parentheses. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to say else if, which is notated in Python as elif. I'm going to say A is greater than B. Again, just like an if statement, you have to do a colon, and then I'm going to do print. And then my statement will be A is greater than B. And now I'm going to have one more condition to check, but since it's the only remaining condition, right, we've said is it equal, yes or no, is it greater than, yes or no, and the only other option is less than, so we're going to make that an else statement, okay, because that's the only other outcome. I do else colon, hit return, I'm going to say print, and say A is less than B, which is the only remaining option, okay, and then I'm close parentheses. Hit return, and now I'm going to go ahead and say run, okay? You'll notice when I do that, it's going to prompt me to save the file. I could go in and save the file first, file, save as, or I could just do run and it will prompt me. Any changes that you do will also prompt you. So I'm just going to go ahead and say Python run module, or you could hit F5. And I'm going to say source must be saved. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll lift that up here. Source must be saved, okay to save. I'm going to say okay. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I already created one called if-else basic. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to replace, I already created, had a program out there with that name. And then you can see what happened. It ran the program and it shows back up in the shell over here. A is less than B because A was 5, B was 7. Okay. So some other things that you're going to want to do. That's a pretty basic example. But you might want to run multiple else if statements, which is pretty common. So in this example, we only had one else if or elif statement. Many times you're going to need multiple. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and pull up another file that I've created, and there's one called grades here. Okay, pull that over here. Okay, so what we're doing is comparing grades. Ignore this for right now. I'll come back to that in a moment. But we're doing if grade is greater than 89.5, you have an A. If it's greater than 79.5, you have a B. So in 69.5, you have a C. So we're able to establish multiple tiers rather than a greater than, less than, or equals. And then finally, if they don't match any of the above, you have an F. Okay. So in this case, rather than setting the variable like grade equals 85, we're setting a user input here. Okay, and the way we do that is you put in an input statement, and then you put in a string of what you want to prompt on the screen. In this case, we're saying enter your current grade, colon, and then we're putting a space and then a quote. So one thing to note about getting user input is when you do that, the default setting is going to be it's going to accept a string, okay, or create a string. So we don't want a string, we want a number, okay? So we set this to a float. You could do an integer, right, which would be a whole number, but in this case, let's assume for some reason you were had a grade of, I don't know, 87.5. You'd need to put a float into a lot of those decimal places. So that's what that does. And I'm going to go ahead and run this now. And it's not going to prompt me to save it because it's already been saved. So I'm going to say run module. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in a grade. Let's put in a 73. And then you'll see you get a C. So we'll go ahead and run it again. And I'll put in a different grade. And let's put in, someone did really bad and say they got a 45. Okay, you have an F. All right, so that's how it works with multiple else-if statements. And that's a really brief introduction to getting user input. Okay. One quick thing you want to note here is we're converting this to a float by using the statement again. And I'm going to show you what happens if you put in let's say you just put in LOL, right? It doesn't understand that you can't convert a string to you get an error here about converting a string to a float and everything. So just a heads up about that. Later in future tutorials, we'll talk about exceptions and errors and how to fix that. All right, so a couple of the things I want to share with you are working with Booleans or true-false equivalency. So created another program here. I'm going to open that. And in this case, we're just making a value of true. So if on this if statement, if a colon, it's checking to see if the value is true when you're using a Boolean, okay? So print A is true, otherwise else print A is false. If I run that, it's set to true. And then we'll come back and cover that in future topics and in other examples, but I just wanted to introduce you to that. And one other thing is everything we've done so far has been we've been using numbers, integers or floats. So what I want to do is share with you an example of using strings. So I created a basic one here called colors. Okay, and then over here you'll notice got color 1, color 2, color 3, green, blue, and yellow. And then if color 1 equals green, print color 1 is green. If color 1 is blue, and go through the standard, the if, else, if, or elif and else. But in this case, the difference is when we're working with numbers, we didn't need to put those in quotes, right? Because these are string values, we need to put those in quotes, okay? So that's what I wanted to share with you on that one. And I'll go ahead and run that just to show you what happens. You run that. And you can see over here, it tells me color 1 is green and color 2 is blue. If we go back and look at the program, that's what we've set those to. And I did not set up if-else statements for color 3. So that's what I want to share with you today. Thanks for joining. And the next tutorial will do a introduction to using for loops. Thanks again. Take care.